Hey guys, Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer. We talk about music, books, and movies. And today, we're going to be doing part 3 in the challenge where me and my imaginary friends, 6 of them at least, who all happen to be dragons, rate an album from every genre on Rate Your Music. Today was supposed to be Aboio, since we're doing this in alphabetical order, but unfortunately, there are no pure Aboio releases on Rate Your Music, nor are not even like compilations or EPs or anything. Yeah. So, we're skipping to the next genre since Aboio is pretty much impossible to find. That being a subgenre of Aboio called Aboio Cantado. The album we're listening to is Aboio di Vaqueiro by Manuel Zinho Aboiador. If I said even half of that correct, I'll be impressed. Before I throw it over to my imaginary friends, though, I'm going to briefly give my thoughts on this album. So, both Aboio and Aboio Cantado are work songs sung by cattle herders in northeastern Brazil. And apparently the difference between them is that Aboio, the original version, has non-verbal vocalizations instead of lyrics and is entirely a cappella. Meanwhile, Aboio Cantado has minimal instrumentation and has actual lyrics. The first time I tried listening to this genre, I thought it was really boring. However, after listening to it again for this video, I have to say, it's at least decent. Like, the atmosphere is admittedly pretty nice, even if it's still not entirely my thing. The things that annoyed me about it were that the minimal instrumentation combined with the tendency to hold notes for a really long time and the somewhat repetitive lyrics kind of started to grate on me after a while. Especially track 7, which just drags on way too long. And it's an okay album, but it's nothing I'd listen to in my free time. 6 out of 10. With that out of the way, let's get started with the voice acting, shall we? Hi, and welcome to Reviewing Every Music Genre. I'm Forrest Woods, and this is Blaze Flarington, Bolt Thunderstone, Houdini Presto, Skyler Wing, and Draven Onyx. Today we're going to be reviewing the music genre of Aboio Cantado. So, this is another regional folk genre I've been tasked with leading the discussion on, even though I've never listened to it. Apparently it's sung by Brazilian cattle herders, and apparently the original version of its parent genre of Aboio is impossible to find. From what I can tell from the Rate Your Music descriptions, they're basically the same, except one has rhyming verses and one doesn't, plus one has slightly more instrumentation. So, if we could find the original version of Aboio, it would probably get a slightly lower score than Aboio Cantado. Anyway, this Aboio Cantado album is surprisingly solid for a borderline a cappella album sung in a language I don't speak. It's not perfect. Track 8 feels like filler, and track 3 is a bit too minimalist even for this genre, but it's a calm yet lonely atmosphere that I like. The vocals are also really good. The way Manuel Zinho Aboiador, I'm sorry for butchering that, holds those notes is impressive. Overall, I probably won't be returning to this much, but it was an enjoyable experience. 8 out of 10. Well, I'm glad you loved it so much, Forrest, but to me this album was boring. The instrumentation was minimal, but what was there consisted of annoying cattle herding sounds such as a cowbell. The singing was quite good, but the spoken word sections annoyed me, especially on track 8, which honestly felt like filler. Sure, it had a decent atmosphere, but there was too much that annoyed me for me to give it a pass. 5 out of 10. I agree with Skyler 100%. This was the most mediocre album ever. There were 3 tracks that downright annoyed me, those being track 3 because of the instrumentation, and the last 2 tracks. Track 7 drags on too long, to the point where I want to stab my ears out by the end of it, and track 8, like you said, Skyler, felt like filler. Balancing this out is track 5, which actually brings in more instrumentation and is kind of fun. Track 4 is also decent. The other 3 tracks are all sleep-inducing. All this balances out this album to a perfect meh. 5 out of 10. Wow, everyone except Forrest seems to be in the same boat so far. Allow me to climb into that boat as well. This album starts out decent, but with 2 not particularly interesting but fine songs. At least the somewhat lonely atmosphere of them is enjoyable. However, track 3 is boring, and then we get 2 songs that break up the flow of the album with annoying instrumentation. After that, we get another boring song, followed by another song that annoys me, in this case because it drags on too long. Then we get a not bad but incredibly pointless track 8. So yeah, it balances out to a low 5 out of 10. You go next, Houdini. I'd like to end this video. Sure. To me, this is also meh. Tracks 1 and 5 are decent due to their tolerable instrumentation. Tracks 3 and 4 had annoying instrumentation, and track 7 dragged on way too long. The other 3 tracks put me to sleep. In other words, you guys hit the nail on the head with your reviews. Well, except for Forrest. 5 out of 10. And I'm also not going to hit the nail on the head with my review, because I'm siding with Forrest. This album has some of the best singing I've heard in a while. Every song sounds passionate and beautiful, with a great atmosphere to complement the vocals. I thought the less instrumentally sparse tracks in the middle did a great job of breaking up the monotony. I will say the last 2 tracks weren't that great, with track 7 dragging on too long and track 8 feeling like it was only there to make sure this album hit the 30-minute mark. But other than that, this album was way more enjoyable than you guys are making it out to be. Light 8 out of 10. I love how we all either loved this album or thought it was boring. Yeah, I was not expecting that. Anyway, Skyler, would you like to add up our scores? Why, sure, Draven. This album gets a combined score of 36 out of 60. Not a good album, but decent. It's also our lowest scoring album for this challenge yet. Checks out. I thought I would be the only one to give this a high score. Thank you, Blaze. No problem. It was a good album. Tune in next time for our next episode where we will cover abstract hip-hop. Anyway, let's throw it back to Morgan. And that's my video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I'm Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer, and I'm out.